You're asleep in a house at Adelheik, a densely packed Stone Age town in central Anatolia, roughly 9,000 years ago. There's no door at street level, because there is no street, just rooftops, wall after shared wall, and the only way in or out is a ladder through a hole in the ceiling. Then the floor moves, not a shake. A roll, like something enormous, has just shifted its weight under the entire town at once. Right now, if the ground starts moving where you live, there's a decent chance your phone buzzes first. A seismic alert, a countdown, maybe 10 seconds of warning routed through satellites you'll never see. 9,000 years ago, the countdown was 0. No alert, no app, no official anything. There was only the floor, moving, and whatever you'd already decided to do about it. So how did people with no rebar, no building codes, and no warning system of any kind survive on some of the most fault-riddled ground on the planet, and in a few remarkable cases, build things that are still standing thousands of years later? Start in Han Dynasty China, in the year 132 C, in the capital city of Luoyang. A court astronomer named Zheng Heng built a bronze vessel roughly 6 feet across, ringed with 8 dragon heads, each holding a small ball in its mouth. Below each dragon sat a bronze toad, mouth open. Inside, a hidden pendulum was tuned to react to a tremor too faint for any human in the palace to feel, tipping one ball into one toad's mouth, pointing, correctly, toward the direction the earthquake had come from. It sounds like the kind of detail that gets exaggerated by later storytellers. It isn't. The event is recorded plainly in the official history of the Han court. In 138 C, a ball dropped. No one in Luoyang felt anything, and the device was briefly dismissed as a toy, until, days later, a messenger arrived from roughly 300 miles west, reporting a quake strong enough to be remembered for generations. The device hadn't just registered an earthquake nobody felt. It had pointed at where to look, so the ground could be read, even then. Reading a warning is one thing. Surviving what it warns you about is a different problem entirely. Jump forward, and sideways, to the island the Greeks call Santorini, known in the Bronze Age as Thera, sometime around 1600 BC. In 1967, archaeologist Spiridon Marinatos began excavating a buried Bronze Age town called Akrotiri, and what he found wasn't rubble. Some of the buildings were preserved up to 3 stories tall, frescoes still on the walls, furniture still in place. Everyone assumes a buried city means a Pompeii-style ending, bodies frozen mid-run, caught by surprise. Akrotiri isn't that. Decades of excavation, continued after Marinatos' death by Christos Domas, have turned up almost no human remains at all. Instead, they've found earthquake damage that was already being repaired. Timber bracing hammered into collapsed walls weeks or months before the volcano itself erupted. The people of Akrotiri weren't buried by surprise. They felt the warning tremors, patched what they could, grabbed what mattered, and left. The eruption killed the town. It didn't kill the people. Everyone assumes ancient stonework survived earthquakes because it was heavy and immovable. It's almost the opposite. The stonework that lasted the longest was built to move. Look at Cusco, Peru, former capital of the Inca Empire, and the walls of Sacsayhuam above the city. Inca masons cut stones weighing up to several tons each into irregular, interlocking shapes, fitted so tightly you still can't slide a knife blade between them, with no mortar holding any of it in place. In 1950, a magnitude 6 earthquake hit Cusco directly. Spanish colonial buildings sitting on top of Inca foundations, walls held rigid with mortar, cracked, buckled, and in places came down completely. The Inca stonework underneath barely moved. Engineers who've studied the walls since described the stones as behaving almost like a puzzle designed to jostle and resettle under stress, instead of shattering the way a rigid structure does. The gaps without mortar weren't a shortcut. They were the entire design. So some cultures built things that could take a hit, but how did anyone know, thousands of years later, exactly where the hits had landed? That question has an entire modern field built around answering it, called archaeoseismology, reading earthquakes out of ruins. Stanford geophysicist Amos Noor spent years examining ancient sites across the eastern Mediterranean, looking for one specific signature: columns snapped and thrown in a consistent direction, walls offset the same way, floors tilted at matching angles across an entire structure. At Hazer, in what's now northern Israel, Noor matched this kind of damage to a date around 750 BCE, and connected it to an earthquake mentioned almost in passing in the Book of Amos, remembered clearly enough, generations later, to be written down simply as the earthquake. Not an earthquake, the one everyone already knew. The ground doesn't just shake and move on. It leaves a signature specific enough, thousands of years later, to be read like a fingerprint. Put all 4 side by side, and the individual tricks start to look secondary. The bronze dragons, the timber bracing, the mortar-free stone, the tilted columns nobody photographed until modern geophysicists came looking. What they share isn't technology. It's a habit, paying close, constant attention to a threat with no schedule and acting on the smallest sign of it immediately. Before you're sure, before it's convenient, before anyone official tells you to. Modern warning systems didn't replace that habit. They automated it, wired it into a chip, so you don't have to be the one watching. For most of human history, you were the sensor. The tremor under your feet was the entire alert system, and how fast you moved was the entire response plan. Back in that house at Adelhike, 9,000 years ago, nobody waited for an official warning, because there wasn't going to be one. You'd have felt the floor move, grabbed whoever was next to you, and gone straight up the ladder through the roof. The same way in, now the only way out, because that's what the whole house had already agreed to do, long before the ground ever decided to test it. We built the alerts. We built the codes, the rebar, the 10-second countdown on a screen. They built something that never needed batteries, a body that moved the instant the Earth told the truth. The house was never the thing keeping anyone alive. You were.